game of, how do you minimize them? You've said there's no impact to stage 2. There's no, until we get to that connectivity point with stage 1, which is down the pipe, there's no delay in the planning and the moving forward on stage 2. My question would be, how do your experiences on here, on stage 1 to date, how do they inform, what we might want to embed in our agreement with respect to stage 2? What are the things that we didn't anticipate that, looking back on it now, we want to ensure that we have in our stage 2 operability agreement?
So we did a learned on stage 1, and we've amended stage 2 accordingly. We also have an ongoing roster of things that we're learning from stage 1 that Mr. Cripps and myself give to Mr. Swale, and that's been embedded in all of the procurement documents. The other thing that we have to our advantage is there's prescriptive language as to who they can assign to lead these projects. And when we get to that point about the successful proponent and who they plan to put onto these projects, I think we have the learnings from stage 1 and stage 2 that we can apply in terms of the types of resources at the senior level and at the project management level of whoever the team is. So lots of learnings, and they don't stop. It's not just that one time. We've learned a lot from stage 1, and we're passing that on to the stage 2 team. And then the follow-up action from last week and this weekend, Mr. Cripps and Mr. Swale are going to get together as part of the review as to where we are on all these things.
Okay. With respect to the route changes, and I know Councillor Manette just went through that with you, and I'm a councillor who's had some route changes in my ward, and I've heard from my constituents that for them, well, it was a great change and it works well for them. There's a set of them it doesn't work well, and it's introducing new transfers, and the ability to say to them, well, look, it's eventually it was going to hook you up with the train, and make for new options for you, was the only silver lining that we had. To your comment to Councillor Manette about, well, it's a complex system to introduce route changes, and it's not easy to walk back. I think that's some of the impacts that we've spoken about around this table are exactly that. We can codify in an agreement what's the penalty you pay, what's the if you don't deliver this, what do we do? Part of the challenge, though, is there's a reputational risk to the point where the ripples in the pond just get further out than they would. So, at some point it affects ridership levels, right? If you can't deliver the service and you're constantly moving the milestones, at some point we didn't predict that we would have this much of an effect on X, right? So, if we can't walk back, I guess what I'm saying is if we can't walk back something like a route change easily, then there are thresholds that we can be forced to cross based on the timeline that RTG gives us that we can't walk back. And there are going to be impacts. Maybe they're not financial, or at least not immediately financial, but they could be reputational. So, I would urge that we somehow look at embedding that in the future, stage 2 and beyond deliberations, because there's always going to be an impact, and if we put ourselves in a position where we can't reverse something because it's just too complex to do, then we really are. We have given up that lever to them, notwithstanding what's in the contract. So I'll leave that with you. My final comment, I guess, would be...
Sorry, Councillor, you'll have to get back on the list because you're
thank you. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Manconi, for the update today. Again, I echo what Councillor Dean said earlier, and some of my other colleagues, that a delay in a project of this magnitude of 6 months and now another few months may not be surprising, and we can certainly look to lessons learned and understand how we can perhaps get certainly better information and more timely information out of RTG in the future, because I don't see that that's happened to date. But what I do want to pick up on are transit riders, and in particular those transit riders who count on our transit system, our to move about, not just to get into work and back every day, who have no other option but to ride our transit, our local transit routes. Many of those are seniors, many of those are folks with disabilities, many parents with children who have no other option but to take our buses every day. That's how they get to do their shopping, to do their groceries. It's how they go to our libraries. It's how they get around the city. And I'm going to, when we talk about the route changes, I wasn't supportive of the changes that happened at Labor Day, but it was going to be full months, and it was going to be through a period, time, fall, which is probably the easiest time for people to be outside and walking. But now we're looking at likely February, the winter. And specifically, the number 11 route. And I'm not going to go out and tell people, it's all about algorithms. So I realize you can't get from Confederation Station anymore to Rideau Center. I'm not going to tell you that the algorithms are too difficult and we don't know how to walk it back, because we do. It's the same route. We're asking for the same route that was in place before Labor Day. So I'm appealing to you today. I'm going to ask you, I had the conversation with Councillor Leeper as well. Our residents are very much affected by that route change. It's not just a simple transfer. It means that there is a walk that is not accessible to people. There are many people. I can do it. I can jump off a bus at Confederation Station, go down that hill, slip and slide a little bit, go under the tunnel, get back out, scoot across the street, dodge traffic. But many people can't, and I have the option not to do it when I don't want to, or when it's when the weather doesn't allow. So I am going to ask you to go back and look at the route, especially the 11. There is no other option for people. The folks taking the 11 are not civil servants coming in to the downtown, earning a decent living and going back. These are folks that need their local transit. They need to be able to get to do their day-to-day living, and they don't have other options. So I will ask that you reconsider those changes and walk them back. I think that we're looking out several months. We're not asking for you to reconsider for 3 weeks. We're asking you to reconsider for what is likely another several months.
No, Councillor, I've heard you all loud and clear, and maybe I wasn't clear in my response to Councillor, so I'll clarify it. I got all this news last week. I'm going to mobilize our team. I need to know from RTG what's the date we're working to. To your point, if it's 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever or if it's months, I'm going to mobilize Pat and his planning team, and I want to go route by route on those last changes, which are the ones that are causing us difficulty. I've seen the emails, I know where they are, and can we walk them back? And if so, how do we do that, and can we do that? I just don't want to say yes today without knowing all the inputs from RTG and whether or not I can and by when. So I totally get what you've just said. We've got to take care of the customer, we've got to take care of our staff that are driving those routes, so I want to think through that and manage those expectations well, and we will circle back with the affected councillors before we do anything in that regard, obviously, and then we have to tie it into the Master Ready for Rail campaign, because we've got to package up the messaging on all this, to say, what are we telling our customers? What are we telling them about no more route changes? What are we telling them if we are walking back certain routes? And so you have my assurance. I will do a deep dive onto those things and look at it, because I understand the sensitivity associated with that and the lack of value proposition to those customers.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that that it's been brought up today. So just again, I just want to emphasize, timing, because we have told the residents that November 2nd is coming. So again, when we're back, when we're getting the phone calls, when we're talking to folks, when we're on the bus with them, we need to be able to give them some assurance that we will have answers. So I just want to leave that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Councillor Egli, second round.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick follow-up question to legal. So we've been given 2 dates so far. Neither one has panned out, unfortunately. If a third date is agreed to by the city with RTG and that also does not pan out, am I correct in understanding that in addition to holding back the money we would owe them, there would be yet another $1 million penalty to RTG for every date missed that we agreed to?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if a date is agreed to by the parties, it would be another $1 million holdback.
Thank you for clarification.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Manconi and your team. Notice of the motion for consideration at subsequent inquiries. No written inquiries received. Other business. Adjournment. Carried. Our next meeting is the 2nd of October. La prochaine réunion, c'est le 2 octobre 2018. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.